The world noticed Jiwoo so. And in the Awakener world, being noticed is the most dangerous thing that can happen to you. Chapters 60 through 90 are where Eleceed stops being an origin story and becomes something bigger, something darker, something that makes you realize this was never just about a boy and his cat. This was always about a war that was coming, whether Jiwoo was ready or not. When we left off, the wrong eyes had found him. Powerful Awakeners had seen what Jiwoo could do in that fight, that raw, limitless speed that defied every expectation. Word travels fast in hidden circles, and the people who traffic in talented Awakeners, who collect them, weaponize them, exploit them, they had already started asking questions. Kayden knows exactly what those questions lead to. This arc opens with a shift in tone that hits immediately. The training doesn't stop, it accelerates. But now there's urgency behind it that wasn't there before. Kayden isn't just developing Jiwoo's ability anymore. He's racing against a clock that only he can see. Every session, every drill, every impossible standard he sets, it's preparation for something specific, something incoming. And he still hasn't told Jiwoo what it is. That tension between what Kayden knows and what Jiwoo doesn't runs through every chapter of this arc like a live wire. Then the new players arrive, and everything changes. Other Awakeners enter Jiwoo's orbit, and these aren't the mid-tier threats from earlier arcs. These are people with real power, real history, and real agendas. Some come as rivals. Some come wearing the mask of allies. And at least one of them carries a secret that will reframe everything you thought you understood about Jiwoo's ability, and where it actually comes from. The school setting explodes in complexity during this arc. What looked like a backdrop becomes a battleground, not always physical, but political, social, strategic. Awakeners who have spent years learning to hide what they are, suddenly forced to reveal themselves under pressure. Alliances form, trust gets tested, and Jiwoo, who came into all of this with nothing but raw speed and a genuinely good heart, finds himself at the center of tensions he barely understands. But here's what this arc makes undeniable. Jiwoo's character isn't just his ability. It never was. In the middle of a world that runs on power and hierarchy and ruthless calculation, he remains exactly who he is. Warm, stubborn, relentlessly protective of the people around him. And somehow, that keeps working. Not because the world rewards kindness, but because Jiwoo backs that kindness with a speed that is now beginning to reach a level that even trained Awakeners cannot fully process. The signature fight of this arc is brutal in the best possible way. Jiwoo faces an opponent who has every technical advantage: experience, precision, a fully developed ability with years of refinement behind it. By every metric, Jiwoo should lose. By every metric, this should end quickly. It does not end quickly. What unfolds instead is the clearest demonstration yet of what Kayden has suspected for a long time, that Jiwoo's ceiling doesn't just sit higher than other Awakeners. It might not exist at all. And then the arc ends with a revelation that resets the entire board, because the organization that has been asking questions about Jiwoo has stopped asking. They have their answer, and they have made a decision, not to recruit, not to observe, not to wait. They are sending someone. Someone specifically chosen for this situation. Someone who has never failed an assignment. Someone who already knows Jiwoo's name and is already on their way. The question isn't whether Jiwoo can survive what's coming. The question is whether Kayden will tell him in time.
Jiwoo So won the fight. But winning a fight and winning a war are two completely different things. And in the world of Awakeners, the difference between those two things can get you killed. Chapters 91 through 120 are where Eleceed decides to stop pulling its punches. Everything that has been building, every hint, every warning, every carefully placed shadow in the background of earlier arcs, it all starts paying off here. When we pick up, the aftermath of the previous confrontation is still fresh. Jiwoo and the people around him are catching their breath. There is a fragile, temporary calm, the kind that experienced fighters recognize immediately as the silence before something much worse arrives. That detail matters, because this arc is built around that quality in Jiwoo, that instinct to protect first, fight second, rest never. And it tests that quality harder than anything has before. The organization that suffered an embarrassment at Jiwoo's hands has responded exactly the way Kayden feared. Not with restraint, not with recalculation, with escalation. The people they send in this arc are not scouts, they are not messengers, they are closers. Awakeners specifically selected because they have never left an assignment incomplete. And for the first time in this story, Kayden cannot simply train Jiwoo past the problem, because the problem is already here. The tension in these chapters is suffocating in the best possible way. Jiwoo finds himself navigating threats that come from multiple directions at once, some obvious, some disguised, some wearing the faces of people he thought he could trust. He does not fit in this world. He never did. But this arc makes something else clear. This world is starting to fit around him. Because when the first major confrontation of this arc explodes, Jiwoo responds with something nobody in that room was prepared for. Not just speed, a growing tactical awareness, an ability to read a fight in real time, to adapt mid-exchange, to find the angle that pure reaction speed alone would have missed. Kayden watches it happen and says nothing. But the expression on his face, even trapped in that ridiculous cat body, says everything. The emotional gut punch of this arc lands in its quietest moment. Not during a fight, not during a power reveal, but in a conversation between Jiwoo and someone he trusts, where the full weight of what he has stepped into finally becomes real to him. He could walk away. The thought crosses his mind exactly once, then it leaves and never comes back. The arc closes with a revelation that reframes the entire conflict. Because the organization pulling the strings is not just a criminal enterprise. What they actually are, what they have always been, is something far older, far more connected, and far more dangerous than anyone on Jiwoo's side had realized. And they have been watching him since long before Kayden ever found him. Since before the ability even manifested. Since the very beginning.